Told you.
It is.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Blasting the shot. What a goal!
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time you're listening to this fantastic podcast. This is the Wolves Fancast review show of Ipswich versus Wolves in association with the Sports Social Podcast Network, FC Quiz.app, and the Boston Coffee and Vending Company. And joining me tonight to talk about what is essentially almost guaranteed survival for Wolves at Portman Road is Stu, Gav, and Luke. Stu, as always, we're linking quite nicely what we're going to talk about later as well. How many jars did you have yesterday down on the way to Portman Road?
Steady gallon, of course. We as I appeared. If you go on BBC Sounds, you want to listen to me as I was drinking live on BBC Radio when I had 2 pints before 11 a.m. Yeah, it was good. We went to Bury St Edmunds, which is one of the poshest places I've ever been to, and just look Bury St Edmunds Wetherspoons up. I know someone said it looked a bit like Heath 10 Baths. I can kind of see why, but it also looked like a botanical gardens inside. It was ridiculous. So we went there, yeah, and we went a couple of other places, and there's a free Palestine march, which was interesting. And then we ended up in this place where it was £7 a pint. But that was Mom's round, so that was all happy. But yeah, we had 3.5 hour session. Everyone was all in good spirits. I think everyone was just really confident though going into it. Like there was no nerves whatsoever. Quite bizarre, really.
Yeah, and it's always strange to go all the way over there. It's a long journey, isn't it, Gav? And I know you went over yesterday.
Yeah.
But I'll get straight on to sort of the team news. I mean, as always with Wolves currently, there's not much to re-talk about because obviously unchanged in 4 while Cunha's been out, your favourite player, Gav. But the only player sort of coming back into that fold was Guedes. And I mean, there's not a lot to say really about the starting 11 and the way that we're setting up because it is kind of like we're getting the best output for the team that's been put on the pitch, aren't we?
Yeah. And it's one of those, if it ain't broke, don't fix it sort of thing, you know what I mean? And, you know, he's got the players playing the way he wants in those positions. I mean, I think there's question marks on having Menezzi out wide. I think there always will be. But, you know, Vitor likes him there. He feels like he can do a job there. I think we'll probably discuss that later in the podcast as well. But, yeah, like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
And what was your thoughts looking at that starting 11 against you? Because obviously it was an important game. They wanted to get to this position where, you know, if we win the game, we're pretty much guaranteed. Do we think this sort of like sticking with tried and tested method is the way to go to see out this season? Or do you think that now, after this game, we're going to be tinkering a little bit potentially?
I don't know who you drop, to be honest. If there was like when Lamina played in defence at Fulham and it was, he can play there forever, and then he played the next game and he was awful. Just because you didn't want to drop anyone. In that situation, then you think, okay, fine, you have got to change it around. But for this, you don't get 10 points out of 12 and then think, just because some egotistical crazy bloke is coming back, that we've got to play with him now. Because it's not the case of having the best players. We've seen this. You bring back to Gerard Lampard every single time with this for England, where it doesn't work. You don't need 11 of the best players in your team, in your squad, in the team. You need players who will work as a team. And this 11, amazingly, from maybe luck, maybe judgment, who knows, but we stumbled upon it and it's working perfectly. So unless anyone's injured or tired or in the red zone or wherever, there's no reason to change this. Just keep going for as long as possible. Yeah,
I agree with you. And I think sort of it is a a team that's based and built upon getting the most and the most value out of all the players that are on the pitch. With that being said, Luke, I mean, the game was kind of, there wasn't much to talk about in terms of chances other outside of the actual goals. Wolves obviously they started quite well. They were in control, and then Ipswich kind of hit them with a sucker with the Liam Delap goal. It was a shame to see us concede something so simple, wasn't it? And it's sort of kind of a callback to a Gary O'Neill goal this season, and being something where a lot of the defenders were kind of at sea. Do you think that was kind of a disappointing moment within this game, or do you think it was kind of like a one-off issue that, okay, we'll move on from that going into the next match?
Yeah, I think it's something that we can move on from pretty quickly. I think one thing for certain since Pereira's come in is defensively, we look a different beast now. Whereas under O'Neill, those sort of goals or chances from those sort of situations was popping up sometimes 2, 3, 4 times a game. Whereas now under Pereira, we're so much more solid. And of course, you're going to give up 1, 2 chances a game. It's the Premier League, you know, you're playing against some high quality attacking players, but you know, we're a lot more solid. I don't think it's something that we need to worry about long term, that we're going to be sort of cut open so easily or make such sort of silly mistakes. You know, I think everyone can be given a lapse in concentration from time to time, as long as it's not something that you're doing consistently. But it was good character as well to turn it around. Mm-hmm. Big 6-pointer, you know, after Ipswich's win at Bournemouth, put the pressure on us a little bit, I suppose, and going 1-0 up, then closing the gap to 6 points, if that's how it would have finished. So I think the team have shown some really good character there to recover from that goal and turn the game around.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. And I think something to sort of touch on from that is that looking at how the way that Ipswich tries to manage that game afterwards, there was a lot of game management. I think sort of looking at the likes of Enciso and Liam Delap is that they tried to work that sort of the black arts and the dark arts of football and tried to slow down the game, didn't they? And it didn't really work for Ipswich, did it, Luke? And them trying to actually control the pace and bring it down to the tempo that they wanted to play at didn't really work for Ipswich throughout that 90 minutes, did it?
Yeah, I think Ipswich's problem is that they haven't got the quality to be able to control a game to how they want the game to go. You know, with all due respect, don't want to talk down on them too much, but it's as simple as that. They just haven't got the quality to do that. Which is it unfortunate or not? I don't know. I don't really care about Ipswich, if I'm being honest. Whether they stay in the league or not, you know, they're just one of those clubs for me. But you know, of course, you know they're going to try and slow the game down and just make it as scrappy as possible. You know, use all the dark arts and the oldest tricks of the book, because they was a lot more desperate to win that game than we were due to their position. But it's just a case of unlucky lads. You know, all the best in the Championship next season.
Agreed. I mean, the one player who did kind of sort of worked on with those tactics they kind of worked against in terms of a player was John Rittenberg. And I think looking at the way that he was involved in that game, Gav, he was kind of nullified. So Vitor Pereira from the stands, you know, he was obviously on the earpiece, so he had a bit of a telepathic link to his one of his coaches on the touchline. He was like, Sarabia, this is it, right? Sarabia, he has the one game a season. It was Tottenham last season. He was class. It's Ipswich away this season. He's come on. He scored a goal. He's got an assist. It's a divine, you know, a moment of God to bring Sarabia on and to be involved in both of those goals, isn't it? It's perfect.
Yeah, I think, you know, it was one of those. Like, for me, I'm not really a Sarabia fan, I'll be quite honest. But in certain games, you can look at a game and think, you know what, this is his sort of game now. And the fact that we had so much of the ball, you know, we weren't exactly hitting Ipswich on the counter attack. It was on the onus was on us to try and break them down. And I think in a game like that, Sarabi's got such a good eye for a pass. It kept, it suited him to a T really. So him coming on and making the impact that he did, I think everyone's still a bit skeptical on him, but it makes sense that the impact that he had, came true essentially. We know he's on big money. He hasn't been consistent throughout the years he's been here. But games like that, he's earned his money for the week, hasn't he? At least this week.
Yeah, no, definitely. And sort of looking at the two subs who came on at that moment, Stu, you've got Sarabi and you've got everyone's favourite player at the moment, the man with a smile, who loves playing football, Rodrigo Gomez. Those two subs, when they come on in that moment, they change the game and they set the tempo for that comeback. And Wolves being able to win that game yesterday, and it was a fantastic piece of management, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's something that we're not used to subs at all under Teabag, were we? Even another useless fact about him that he just did fuck off the bench, but we're not used to it. And when it happens, it's so impressive like that. Like I said, it's a gift from God, I suppose. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you touched on it there about how in the first half where they did nullify Bellegarde, and they've obviously targeted him as being one of our best players. And in the last few weeks, he has been. So what do you do? How do you mix it up? And Sarabi away from home has been pretty awful. Every time he's played away from Molineux, it's never really worked for him. Yeah, regardless of the quality of the opposition, he looked up for it yesterday. He was putting his aging body about a bit, and yeah, I mean, fair play. I mean, Rodrigo Gomez is one of them where whatever that weird injury he had, maybe being top shagger again. No one gets a groin injury, do they? I mean, come on. You can't blame the lad, but still, he's come back. He got Player of the Year playing wing back, didn't he? And now he's putting his case forward for Semedo's replacement next season. And you look at his enthusiasm and he's kind of. There's just something about him, isn't it? I know that you say about the smile. There's just something incredibly likable about him, and it's infectious, and it rubs off on everyone else. And it was the tempo lift that we needed, because it was a bit stale and it was a bit laboured, I suppose you could say. And Ipswich did. I mean, Peter Banks having whatever in his tea before the game. Maybe it was of a blue persuasion, because the refereeing in that first half was diabolically bad. You can't even say 50-50, because it was even the 90-10s in our favour were going to them. And you think, well, okay, let's stir the pot a bit. Let's put the middle. Oh yeah, the Sky in the Premier League, they want a relegation fight, don't they? They want to take it to the wire. And that's how it felt at half time. And you think, well, we're not at the races. They nullified Bellegarde. We've now got the refs on our backs as well. We can't get a break. What do you do? And then you come out second half, he makes them subs, and it changes the game. And we've been crying out for something like that, and someone who will see the game as it is and know what to do from the bench. We've been crying out that for years, and it actually finally happened.
Yeah, and having people who have been able to step up in key situations have been really important. I think the last 4 games, while Cunha's been out, Luke, I mean, the man of the moment has really, really been Jurgen Strand Larsen, and 4 goals in 3 games. It's in immense form, and it's the sort of exactly the thing that we needed when he come back from injury, wasn't it? And to see the level of goal scoring that we've not seen since Raul Jimenez was in the side. This variety of goals, it's been an absolute wonderful moment for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, it's exactly what you need when your sort of talisman, your star player, gets suspended or injured. You need your other players to step up, and Strand Larsen's done that. I mean, there's been a lot of question marks over him since he joined, myself included. When he first came, I was struggling to see sort of exactly what he brought, and you look at his lack of pace and you think, is that going to be a problem in the Premier League? Then obviously, as you watch more and more games, and you start to understand, well, actually, you got to feel sorry for the lad, because Gary O'Neill has not got a clue how to use this bloke up front. But like you mentioned with Raul, I think is he 2 goals off equalising Raul's record of 13 in the Premier League?
Yeah.
Which, considering the season we've had, the lack of service that he's had as well personally, it's some achievement, and like you said, the variety of goals as well. Headed goals, left-footed goals, right-footed goals. 6-yard box, 18-yard box, outside the box. He was outside the box in the first time, wasn't he? Yeah, about 20, 25 yards out, wasn't it? That's a big variety of goals. And I think Pereira's getting a lot more out of him than O'Neill was. And long may it continue, because any team worth their salt in this league, you need somebody putting the ball in the back of the net for you. So I think, there was concerns who was going to get the goals when Cunha lost his head again. And fair play to Strand Larsen, because he's come up with some big goals this season as well. And like I mentioned earlier, what I like the most is the variety of the goals that he brings to the team.
And you know what? He's scoring 1 in 4, and not 1 in 4 games. 1 in 4 shots is going in.
Isn't his shot on target ratio like ridiculously good as well?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like it's almost 1 in 2, or just over 1 in 2 shots on target from shots taken. And you think that's better than everyone else in the Premier League. And you look at it, he's got 2 less goals than Raúl's first season, with 9 less games or something like that.
Yeah,
in a much worse team, like we said a couple of weeks ago when this stat came out, and the people have slagged his first touch up, and he can't hold the ball up well. Well, he did both of them yesterday, and he should have got the assist for Sarabia's goal as well. When that came purely from him running into space, controlling the ball at height, which was more difficult than it seemed at first when I watched it back again later on. And then he's got the skill to bring it down and lay it off as well. I mean, he was a brilliant piece of football, and you think, because he's 6'4" and he's a bit gangly, and it's a bit like the Peter Crouch effect, isn't it? That he looks a bit awkward.
Do you know who? So when I watched the highlights back this morning, and I saw Strand Larsen, and it clicked. I thought, it reminds me of Dzeko when Dzeko was at Man City.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
I was like, I couldn't see a lot of similarities with Strand Larsen and Dzeko, and I mean, it's ideally next season, we can get somebody in to push him for that number 9 or centre forward or striker role, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But for his first season, and I'll tell you what else is good about Strand Larsen. He's got a bit of personality, and that picture of him wearing them glasses yesterday, it's one of the best pieces of shithousery I've seen in a long time.
As if by magic, Luke. There you go.
Oh, perfect.
Absolutely brilliant.
And one of those magical moments, and I noticed it straight away. And I wanted to hopefully get a video in there. Was that when they all celebrated and they came over to the fans after the Strand Larsen goal, and it'll stay with me for a long time. And I'll play a little video for those who are watching on YouTube. You'll be able to watch, but. Andre, when he grabbed that phone off the fan, he's just giving it large. It's just wonderful to see how much these players, these boys from Brazil, from the favelas, they're enjoying being part of this football club, and the product that was put out yesterday, Stu. I think it was yesterday, it might have been today, where Pedro Lima and Andre are going to that cafe and trying British food and drinking tea. It's the sort of thing that, we know that the club puts out, pieces of product that make players seem more approachable and likable, but this always feels very genuine with some of these players, and it does, doesn't it, to see them enjoying it and enjoying life. It feels real. Yeah,
and the fact that this wasn't a club thing either, it was just some foreign channel, some Brazilian channel, I presume, who put it out. The Dean, being the football pervert that he is, he found when he was scaring again. But this wasn't promoted on English channels. It was just one of these things. I presume that they used to get Beckham to do when he was in Spain and for English audiences, and it wasn't shown there, that kind of thing. And the fact that they're doing this stuff and they're going along with it and talking about black pudding and tea, and it's just the whole no dickheads rule. I know we fell foul of that a few times, and we've still got a couple here now. One mainly. But these kind of things, there's no PR behind it. There's no let's go and look, make ourselves look good, going to cancer kids and all this kind of thing. It's just hot. It's just nice, warm entertainment, like the thing with Wang and the Korean food.
Yeah,
that was not. It was like a collaboration, but it was for a YouTube channel. So this kind of stuff's great. So let them go and do their own things. Let them express themselves. Don't put them under handcuffs and make them do scripted stuff that they don't really want to do.
Yeah,
give them stuff that shows the personality off and that they want to do, and they want to have a bit of fun, and it's great.
But look at the difference now of the connection between the team and the fans. And, it's not like we're fast forwarding from 3 years ago. This was only sort of 3 or 4 months ago where, the conversations were, there's no one who's really likeable in this team at the minute. And the fractures between the team and the fans and the club and the team and the club and the manager and it's all gone now. It feels like the energy and the atmosphere and that connection between fans and club and, not fans and club, sorry, definitely no, fans and team. Between the fans and team, polar opposite to what it was, like I said, 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, Pereira's another good example as well, isn't he? Going to all the pubs,
We'll talk about that in a minute, but first, before we get to that, I want to just give you a specific question, and I was going to ask you something more round about Cunha and him being back, but I had a fantastic little comment coming from David Hooper on YouTube, and I'll put this question. I will pose it to you and you only, Gav. So the question is: if JSL gets top scorer and Andre gets Player of the Year, as he should, at the end of the season, how big will Cunha's meltdown be?
You know what? It might be massive, and to be perfectly honest, no one would give a fuck, would they? Really? Because he's off in the summer. He's got his release clause in. At the end, you will probably get the question later: will we play him in the next game? Because we know he's back for the Spurs game. I'll tell you right now, absolutely not. Because I think he's not match fit because he hasn't played for 5 games, or 4 games or whatever it is. 2, the team's in form, and 3, he's a dickhead. So on those 3 things alone, he shouldn't really play. The meltdown will be massive, and you know what? I'll love to see it.
I couldn't. You couldn't have said it any better. And to be honest, I don't want to push too much on the Cunha thing, because obviously there's going to be plenty there. People are wanting to play. There'll be people who wanting to play next week. People who don't wanting to play. But at the end of the day, the team who play for Wolves, they've stepped up while he's been banned because of his own stupid fucking antics in the FA Cup. Yeah. They've stepped up. They've scored the goals. They've got the points that's needed. We don't need to have the conversation really about him. And I'd rather talk about something a little bit more fun. And I'll first come to you on that one, Stuart. And you know what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be Vitor Pereira. And he obviously, it didn't take long to circulate that he was on a bit of a pub tour, a big pub crawl last night. I don't know whether this is the correct order, but I know at some point he was at the Gifford. Rumours about whether he sat in the throne or not are unsubstantiated. But he was definitely at the Moon Under the Water as well. I'll ask you a couple of questions, Stu. And the one on the screen there, which pub or bar should he visit next? But also, what do you think he ordered when he was at Wetherspoons, and why was it a Ruddler's Best?
He's such a real man, isn't he? I love him so much. But then he's turned up in a leather jacket as well. And it's like he's dressed for the night out. And you can tell he's done the whole thing. He swapped his trainers for his shoes at the last minute on the couch, or he's wearing someone else's just so he can get in. But he's so unbelievably normal. He reminds me a bit like what Zenga was, where he was a bit too crazy, and he didn't have the talent to match it up, unfortunately. But Vita seems to have so far, and it's been put out over the last 24 hours that he's got the most points of any Wolves Premier League manager after his first 15 games, which is frankly insane. But you look at that, you think, well, he's ticking off the good ones, but he hasn't been to the Posada and he hasn't been to Lichgate yet, has he? I think when he goes there, his mind's going to be blown.
What do you think, Luke? Do you think maybe he should end up in Pop World or Planet or somewhere a little bit more degen?
I'd like to see him in Cinderella's.
Do you reckon he should get 600 dances for the 600 managerial games? Or do you think I might be taking it too far?
I think he'd probably have enough after the first one or two. His cult status is growing quickly for him, isn't it?
Yeah,
what a boy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he's a wonderful individual. I think as Stu says, it just feels a little bit more real. There is I didn't want to put it up. Thanks, Stu. I know you did it. That's why I thought. And I read that comment. Thanks, David. Appreciate that one. Audio listeners, I'm not going to read it out. You have to do it. But
get it on a t-shirt. Get that on a t-shirt.
That'll sell. That'll be the number one in a week. But I mean, as we were saying, I mean, he's a wonderfully likable individual. Go on, mate.
That's the title of the podcast. That is the title of the podcast.
I'll have to get approval from Little Dan first if I'm going to put that as the title.
It has to be now.
I've got to get approval for that one. That one's running some kind of legend. That's some kind of line.
If he says it in his press conference on Friday now.
Oh my God.
That'll break it down. I mean, yeah. For the audio listeners, I try and put it in a nice way, but it's first points and then lady attention. Let's just say that one. Or, that sort of thing.
Lady Garden. Let's just say what
Lady Garden, yes. Yeah, we can work from that. But,
rhymes with wussy.
Jesus Christ, Cam. But yeah, this is gone. This podcast is gone.
I know. We're meant to be highbrow as well.
I know. I'm going to ask you. I'm going to come back to some questions. But the man who sort of like come back, and we've seen probably sort of the better of him under Viso Pereira, and that sort of partnership that's built, and the interplay and the interchange between Andre and João Gomes. Andre, he's quietly going about his business, about becoming probably one of the better midfielders outside of the traditional top six, and doing things right and doing things simply. He's there. His value is astronomical at the moment, isn't it, Gav? Because he's, in terms of a footballer and his ability on the pitch, he's got no ceiling, has he?
No. I mean, when we first signed him, I think there was a lot of noise about him, wasn't there? Saying he's one of the best sixes in the world. The only thing I knew about him was that he was a regular for Brazil. I'm not going to say not like Dean, where he's probably actually watched him play for Fluminense or wherever he came from originally. Mm-hmm. But I knew he was in the Brazil squad quite often, and a lot of people held him in high regard. For me, I think he was a little bit underwhelming in the middle part of the season, but now, you can see, the hype that he came with and what people were saying in Brazil. You can see that clear as day now. And it's so good to see him and João Gomes in the middle. I mean, you will probably talk about it later. João Gomes is a new contract. Now that we've got those two together in the middle, looking like we should have them for next season now, for at least another season. That's something you can build around now, the pair of them.
Yeah.
And then you can just focus on what you need to focus on everywhere else, maybe the forward positions, the wide areas. But Andre's, he's been class. I think he's probably been my man of the match for the past. Him and Agbadou, it's been a toss-up between them for the past 4 or 5 games.
Can we just highlight that Gary O'Neill didn't really rate Andre as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
He's he didn't give him a sniff, did he? I mean, he was on the bench for a lot of the games, and he persisted with Lamina for a lot of them as well. You know what I mean? But it goes to show, doesn't it? At the end of the day.
Thing is, he came in. He played 3 or 4 games, won Player of the Month, and then got benched.
Yeah, he had a really good few games. The Villa game, he was really good. And then all of us, no reason. I think the pressure got to him then to Gary O'Neill, and he tried to make things work where it was never going to work. But no.
Yeah, he's a wonderful individual, and I think him and I think Agbadou is probably sort of an out. I think Agbadou had been here since the start of the season. He'd definitely be in with the shout of being player of the season because his levels are above anything even that we even saw when we had Willy Bolly at his best of Wolves.
Yeah.
Those two individuals are just incredible. Obviously, we mentioned that Vitor Pereira had his 600th game in his managerial career, in sort of that mad 5 minutes or whatever just happened. But another player who's celebrating a sort of a milestone in his career is Rayan Ait-Nouri, and he quite quietly went up about getting 150 appearances yesterday. I'll come first to you on that one, Stu. I mean, he's been a bit of a mercurial player. He's magical in moments. He's frustrating in others. But is there particularly one moment in his Wolves career so far that sort of defines everything that you like about Rayan?
When you got two, and you got his debut against Palace, even though it was in the bad times when there was no one there, but still, I thought he was exceptional in that game. And then Liverpool away, where he just pocketed Salah, and Liverpool at home as well, where he did the same thing again, and then he got took off, and then he conceded. But he was immense in them games against Liverpool. You think, well, this is the actual level he's got. I think his problem still, kind of, he does switch off too much. He's not completely focused all the time. And that's obviously just his personality and just the way he is. So you got to kind of grin and bear it. But when he is focused, he's a superb player. And I've been critical of him more than any of this season because, and so like, if he does go, I think Hugo Bueno coming back and we're not going to lose that much. But when he's on it, there's no one near him for me.
Yeah. I mean, looking at, we said this, I said with Andre, having players who are probably one of the better player in their position outside of the traditional top six, Luke. You could say the exact same thing for Rayan, can you? He does things that you see Man City players doing with fullbacks popping up in midfield, being able to be fluid, being able to attack the game in certain ways that are not very traditional for a left back or a wing back. He's got a lot of value as well, hasn't he? And he's somebody that Wolves could potentially move on in the summer, and he'd be a big miss, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would. I mean, I really like Ait-Nouri. I think he's brilliant, and I think he's destined for really good things. But like Stu mentioned, I like Hugo Bueno as well. So if he was to go and Bueno comes in to replace him, is it a good replacement? How much would we miss Rayan? And especially if we got a good fee for him as well, it's a difficult one. Ideally, I think I'd rather keep him than sell him now, because one thing that's impressed me about Ait-Nouri probably over the last 18 months is I actually think the defensive side of his game has improved so much since when he first joined the club. I think he's always been able to attack and he's always been brilliant going forwards. But in his first couple of seasons, I think he was quite fragile defensively. But I think he's a solid left back now. Well, I know he plays like left wing back, but as a defender, I think he'll do a job. Even if you played him left back in a 4, still think he'd do your job defensively. And I mean, what left backs are outperforming him in the league this season? Off the top of my head, I'm struggling to lie.
Robinson, maybe.
No, Lewis Hall. Newcastle
Yeah,
seem to love him, don't they?
Theo Robinson as well. He's incredible, but
he's good. Yeah,
there's not many out there.
No, he's
it feels like it's going to be a step back if he leaves. In all reality,
I think it depends on if Feyenoord have the money to put a big bid in for Bueno. I think that'll be the thing really, because if it comes back and Feyenoord, let's say we put 25 million on Bueno and Feyenoord don't take him, then we might be in a position where Rayan Ait-Nouri had more suitors rather than Bueno. But just to compare the two, I mean, I think the only problem with Ait-Nouri is like Stu said, he just switches off, doesn't he, from time to time. I think when he's on it and he's focused, like Luke said, he is a good defender now compared to before, where he used to switch off. I remember Leicester away in COVID, he was giving away stupid penalties all the time. But now when he switched on, like Salah, how many times have we played Liverpool and he hasn't given him a sniff? So I think it's been more than 2. It's probably been about 3 times we played Liverpool, and he hasn't given him a sniff at all. and he's such a high IQ player. Like the flicks he does, like they come off. You know what I mean? It's not like Pedence where he'll try 100 of them and only one will come off. Most of the time, what he does actually comes off. So he's a good player, and I think you need a bit of X factor player as well, isn't he? He's a pure skill. He's a streets won't forget footballer, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
To put it in any other way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but I love him. So hopefully we can keep him in the summer.
What's Ryan Giles up to nowadays?
Oh,
Still at Middlesbrough, I don't know.
God
But
knows.
thinking about that and going into the summer, Stu, obviously Cunha is probably going to go. And that release clause around 62.5 million pounds. If Rayan Ait-Nouri went as well, Wolves don't really need to spend money to replace those two. Maybe they need to get a forward, but in all honesty, they don't need to put big outlay. Having such a big amount of money come in and then potentially losing Semedo and Sarabia in terms of wages, we should be in a very comfortable financial situation going into the next couple of seasons, shouldn't we? Where we can sort of pick and choose and bring in players to develop, sort of like from a Brazil or from an Argentina, South American countries, to really sort of start stepping up this model that we've seen from Hobbs. Do you think that's potentially what the club are looking at, sort of as a long-term goal?
When the fact that you said that we don't have to replace them is it's music to Jeff's ears, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just think of the extra he can have on the balance sheet this year. I'd rather go this way the way that we've gone this calendar year with Agbadu and Prince Manetsi and players who have got heart and fight as well as a lot of talent. Not just the talent part, because we've seen that and it doesn't work. Not here. So I'd be more than happy to say, for argument's sake, well, you pay off the 9 million that you have to pay for Rayan, so you get 20 million maybe. So you're looking at an 80 million pound war chest. We'd probably only spend about 30 of that anyway, because we know what they're like. If that brings in two players, if they're a similar kind of profile, I'll be happy with that. Because we know our place. And the fact that you got old Dazzle celebrating staying up. I mean, that was the most cringy thing ever. Not just him, the whole 3/4 of the way and singing "We Are Staying Up." You think, oh, come on. And the fact that we're even in this situation is embarrassing enough.
Yeah.
When we got Hobbs on camera talking to Strand Larsen about pushing for Europe this season. Yeah, we know a lot of that. He's on Gary and whatever, but still, you got to have a bit of humility, a bit of self-respect. The fact that we're in this position is embarrassing. We should be pushing top half. I still think this squad, with a couple, has got the ability to do that really, and go on a cup run again. So I'd be more than happy spending 30, 35, 40 million on 2 or 3 players and not going crazy, because going crazy doesn't work for us.
No, and we don't sort of need that whole revolution of the squad. It's just a slight, mild tweak, and having these players already like Pedro Lima, Rodrigo Gomez, Hugo Bueno is out there on loan. These players can kind of like seamlessly fit into the squad, can't they? And be part of it and ply their trade. They've either done it here at Wolves in bits and bobs, and or Hugo Bueno is at Feyenoord. Having these players who can come and step in, it seems like the model's kind of set up and working. I want to touch on something you said then, Stu, and talking about, I don't want to talk directly about Dazzle, but I think sort of the mentality that some Wolves fans have got towards this season has been really, really fractured. And sort of looking at it, Luke, what Stu said there about, okay, what we should have expected for this season and what we've been happy to achieve, that shouldn't really take away from the anger, the vitriol, and the disappointment that Wolves fans have with the board and the way that this club's been run this season. Should it? I mean, we shouldn't really be happy with what we've got. We should be still really, really annoyed and totally frustrated going into the summer and the next season.
Yeah, definitely. A win over Ipswich to ensure we've got another season in the Premier League doesn't take away the fact that a good chunk of good fans have been legitimately priced out of the game. The fact that they tried to price out some of the most vulnerable members of our community and city, absolutely disgusting. We need to look at this in two different sections. You've got the team who deserve all of our support week in, week out, and you've got the club who deserve what they're getting at this moment in time, in my opinion, because the way that they went about things in the summer, absolutely shocking. The only reason that the money got spent in January was because they was absolutely shitting themselves. Same as, was it 2 seasons ago, when they had to give Lopetegui all that money. It seems like everything's done on a shoestring with no real thought or strategy behind the direction that the board want to take the club. I think even sometimes when you look at the transfer strategy, do you know what? I'm going to go back on that because I think you can definitely see a bit of a strategy in the profile of players that have come in January in Agbadu, Giga and Manetzi. Obviously, was weak as piece on set pieces. We've now got some physicality into the team. We're a lot harder to break down. We're a lot more physical, making our first contacts on set pieces, attacking defensively, whatever. But I just think we need to make it clear that the team will get the support and the backing of the fans, and the board won't. And some people will disagree with that, but I know there's a big majority of fans out there, a lot who have been going home and away for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And the way they have made themselves feel towards the club, I think it's unforgivable, if I'm being honest. I really do.
Yeah, totally agree with you, mate. And I think sort of the situation is so fractured now that it's going to take some kind of absolute miracle for the bond to be put back in place between Folsom and the fans. I think the biggest thing is, and the only logical step within that is for Jeff Shee to relinquish the role that he has within the club, and for the club to put somebody who's a bit more football knowledge based or football focused to run the club. I think that seems to be the logical step. Whether Folsom go down that line, I mean, there was rumours of it potentially happening last summer. It's to be seen. Everything's very close guarded secret with Folsom in terms of the way that they run at that level.
My concern with Folsom, and I could be completely wrong here, and if I am, that's fine. But the image that I get of Folsom at the moment is they don't care about Wolverhampton Wanderers Football Club. All they care about is the Microsoft PowerPoints that come through every quarter, and the graphs going up or the lines on the graphs going down, what money's coming in, what profit's being made. And Ellie, you're a business, brilliant. And I actually agree when Jeff came out and saying we need to be self-sustaining. I believe every football club in the country should have a self-sustaining model. That's not a problem at all. Yeah. But when there's no sort of love or compassion or empathy towards that club and its people and its communities, and you are literally just viewed as a fucking line on a graph and an Excel spreadsheet, it's shit.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one side of it, and I think the other side is that we don't have the backbone from the FA and from the Football League to step in and eradicate behaviour that we've seen. I mean, they're not going to ratify Chelsea's sale of the women's team to themselves, but the sort of level of behaviour from football clubs where they can embezzle money within themselves, that needs to stop. And at the end of the day, football should be for the fans, and it should be for the people who want to go and watch it and enjoy it, and it shouldn't be the play toy of oligarchs and billionaires.
Yeah. Because
fuck those people. They're ruining the rest of parts of our lives. I don't want us to ruin the parts of football, football and things that we do for social enjoyment outside of our lives, where we may have stress and we may have worries and things like that. We don't want football to be that. That's supposed to be our release.
Yeah.
Sort of coming back towards the game, obviously, the result sort of guaranteed probably what we'd hope at now, our survival. 12 points clear of Ipswich in 18th, Stu. Nelson Semedo put it quite nicely there. Team spirit, passion, togetherness, a pack. We are alive. 7 to go. Let's be ambitious. I mean, you're looking at the table. Given the situation where we were sort of 4 or 5 games ago, the fact that we are now 6 points off Man United in 13th, it's insane to think that we could potentially finish 15th and above at the end of this season, couldn't we?
I mean, the fact that we've got to play Man United and we've got to play Tottenham, it's kind of that it's almost in our own hands to make their lives even worse. It's just funny. And if we finish anywhere other than 17th, it's one of the best ever Premier League seasons we've had, considering the absolute mess we were in when he came in. And it kind of says everything about the state of the league this season, that we've been so bad, trickling along in our own little world for a lot of it, with them 3 being historically awful. But at the same time, them 3 being that bad, it does mean that everyone above them, like, normally you expect the bottom 3 to pick points off them round about us. So it's one of them weird ones, isn't it, where if they were a bit better, then you would see like Everton and West Ham having slightly less points, maybe Brentford as well, Palace in their customary 13th, 12th, they're punching for what they do. But the fact that we've got hope at all is astonishing, because you look at it and you think, yeah, obviously it's not guaranteed yet, and Southampton have trickled away, and we'll come on to the square-headed clown in a bit. But the fact that we could finish more with a bit of respectability, and when you look at it from what we said earlier about that, and what Luke was saying about how fans have been treated, and I ain't talking about VAR again because it's boring, but 5 minutes today, there was a check for something that was offside by the naked eye. No idea what was going on. Yesterday, the checks in our game, way too long. Silliness. And then you had the pass back incident where no one knew what was going on.
No.
And obviously I do, because I'm sad, because I read the book every year. Why is it not on the line? Why is it on the 6-yard box? Why is he not sent off? Why is it not a booking? Because it just is. It's just the way it is, isn't it? But why there's a big massive screen there. Why is it just not written down for people who are not sad like me? And like the vast majority of people who this kind of madness happens like once every 3 or 4 years, especially at the top level. Like there's people looking around saying, what happens now? And why don't you just put a thing up? I know it might seem like infantilizing people, but just put a thing up saying, yeah, fell by Palmer, course of action, free kick, 6-yard box.
Yeah.
Indirect free kick. It's not fucking hard. You can type it up, and
well,
it goes onto the screen.
They kind of do that already, don't they? With
with the VAR, yeah.
So I don't understand why they couldn't do a similar thing.
Yeah, for strange things like that don't happen very often, just do it.
Yeah,
it just makes everyone's lives a bit easier.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think sort of the first step in that would be to mic up the referees, so we actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
and having that transparency that, okay, what they're saying in the conversations that they're having between themselves and with VAR, that is totally transparent and not limited to some of these Sky Sports News specials where they mic up the referee and talk about certain situations, because everything should be transparent at that level of officiating.
Yeah.
Sort of almost sort of touching on it without saying it, Gav, is Nelson Semedo. He's obviously, we feel like he might go at the end of the season. Nothing's guaranteed, nothing's confirmed yet.
Yeah.
But since Mario Lemina had his meltdown and was stripped to the captaincy and he was given the armband, he has gone quietly about his business, and he has been sort of the sort of leader on the pitch that leads through action and not through voice. And he's set a standard and an example, hasn't he, as a captain, that a certain behaviour that should be given as a player and certain standards for performance, they should be at a certain level. he's been a blessing, hasn't he, since to come in and take that armband, and he's somebody who we didn't really expect to do that role as Wolves fans.
Yeah, not really. I mean, when Kilman left in the summer and we were all debating on who the next captain was going to be, I think Lamina was unanimous at the time, wasn't he? With most people, to be honest. Him or Dawson, I think people were tossing it up between. So Semedo wasn't really on the radar for that at that point in time. But thinking about his career, he's played at the best standard compared to anyone in that dressing room. He's played with the best players. If anyone's going to have an ego in that dressing room, it should be him, to be quite honest. So for him to be the most level-headed, and he actually seems like a nice guy. You know what I mean? He looks like someone and sounds like someone that's approachable. You know what I mean? I can imagine Lamina wasn't really like, if he was pissed off one day, you wouldn't want to talk to him. As Semedo, he looks like the person that wouldn't really get pissed off all the time. And on the pitch, he's been class. I mean, since he's had the armband, he's been a solid 7 out of 10, hasn't he? Every week. And for me, it's important that we take him on for another couple of years, because I think he is capable of playing for another couple of years, and you don't want to be searching around looking for another position to replace. You know what I mean? You want to keep that to a minimum. Cunha's going to go, let's replace him. Gueda's going to go, let's replace him. Semedo is someone where he's doing a job now. Let's not, give ourselves extra work to try and replace him.
Yeah, I mean, that's it for me. You've got the wages automatically saved from when he leaves. Just transfer them straight to Semedo. Job done.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the one thing that we saw, especially under O'Neill, but we've seen less so now, is that sort of emotional element, Stu. And Max has put it as a comment here that while Joe is a walking yellow, the emotional team is overall a lot more settled now. We've seen that, haven't we? In the game management within ourselves as a group of individuals is a lot calmer now. We've removed certain said individuals like Mario Lamina and people like Cunha have maybe been put on a leash a little bit. That our emotional intelligence on the football pitch is a little bit more constituted now.
Yeah. I mean, you look at it, and they were basically given, like we said over and over again, it was supply teacher, wasn't he, under Gary O'Neill? So they could do whatever they wanted to. There was no discipline. Like, you go and do what you want. Just behave. But they just don't listen. They didn't listen to him, so they did do what they want, and then it was chaos all the time. Whereas now you've got someone who is getting a bit of discipline into him. He's taking the flak himself, and he's the one getting suspended up in the gods. And a bit like what Mourinho used to do, he'd take it for the team. He'd be the one who was shouting the odds and leaving the players out of it. Yeah. And when you have got a calming head with someone like Semedo, who seems an incredibly intelligent guy as well, and you look at who's one of the signing videos in January where he was showing them around, and he was like, "Oh, you're the captain." But no, we're all captains here. I was just wear the R-band. You think that's probably one of the best things I've ever heard, like from any captain at Wolves in 30 odd years of being a fan. So it's been the best choice. It's been an inspired choice, and the fact that he does lead by example, and he's not like, I'm the best player on this team. He leads by example by being a good person and not being a fool. And again, like what we said about Rodrigo's attitude and his happiness being infectious, being a professional is infectious as well. And I think you are following someone's lead, and it's worked perfectly.
Yeah. What's your take on this whole leadership situation, Luke? I mean, obviously we've said about how good Semedo was for settling the team down and being, this level-headed individual to calm the dressing room down. But with that, the bench is obviously twisted, and they're a little bit more animated. They're the ones who are trying to motivate the crowd. We saw with Vita's assistant really trying to rally the crowd against West Ham in those final couple of moments. What's your take on the situation with the way that Vitor Pereira is sort of trying to get the players to be more calm, but him and the people around him are a little bit more animated and a bit more, vocal?
So with that, you can look at it two ways. Like, should the coach, manager, coaching staff, team, whatever you want to call them, be leading by example and the players following suit. But, like Stu touched on earlier, for me personally, I would rather the coach be getting the yellow cards and the suspensions than your centre mid or your striker or whatever. So if the coaching staff can use that sort of frustrative energy, which is naturally in football anyway, and just allow the players then to focus on the actual playing football and try not to get wrapped up with all the emotions that come with the game, I'm all for it. I'm here for it. You know, it's what's going to be more damaging for the team: Cunha ragging some geezer's glasses off his head, or Pereira and his assistant doing whatever they do on the touchline and getting yellow cards and suspended. You know, for me, just let the gaffers deal with all the bullshit. Let the gaffers take all the shit, all the yellow cards, all the touchline bans, suspensions, fines, all of that stuff, and just let the players focus on playing football and not getting embroiled in that nonsense that just naturally happens within football. Because, again, for me personally, whether people agree or not, by the by, but sometimes when you play football emotionally, it can have a real negative effect on your game.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, you put it beautifully, mate, and probably that is a great way to end, and that sort of message of how we move forward, and that's where we've been. Thanks for everyone who's sort of been part of it. I'd ask for man of the match, but I don't think we could really pick one after yesterday's game. I think everyone did really, really well. So, yeah, thanks, Ed, for coming in at the last minute. Way to enter the podcast ragging some geezer's glasses.
It's a good job we don't come in 25 minutes of me.
You're ragging something else. You know, someone else who has been royally shafted this weekend. A spare thought for Aaron Ramsdale.
Aaron Ramsdale. Sayonara, Southampton. Back to the Championship with you. Probably League One. You're a bag of bollocks. Hopefully you don't get the extra point, and you will be the worst ever. Because fuck me, I hope so.
There's no way they can't get an extra point, man. There's no way in how they can't get an extra point. 7 games. 7. No. Oh, that's unfathomable. Oh,
what are they on now? They're on 9.
They're on 10.
They're on 10.
Derby's record's 11.
Oh man!
But they are the earliest to ever get relegated, though, because even Derby got relegated on week 32. So
yeah,
they are historically bad in one sense, at least.
Jesus.
Yeah, they'll have that forever, and so be it. Yeah. On that wonderful note, again, sayonara, Southampton. Don't ever come back. We don't want to see you ever again. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Thanks, Stu. Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Gav. Everyone who's left comments, everyone who's been vocal. Hopefully, we'll see you next. Well, sort of at back end of next week for a Tottenham preview. Hopefully, beat Spurs, get Big Ange sacked. Be a nice way to carry on this season, wouldn't it? Thanks for everyone who's joined us, and we'll see you next time, Wolves fans. Wonderful.